Great, guys. I also just want to get the chat up so I can see everybody. Okay, great. Yeah, Dennis, thanks again. And everyone, thank you very much for joining me today. As Dennis said, it's also an interactive session. I can see your questions here, so please feel free to drop them in. I think let's get going. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is just some of the sort of top-line thinking around Facebook. We're going to focus predominantly on the ad network, and I'm going to explain why. But the first thing I want to do for everybody is just contextualize for you with some stats, some basic stats, high level for South Africa. And this comes from We Are Social and Hootsuite. I'm sure if you've been working in Facebook a little bit, you've probably heard of Hootsuite, but We Are Social also a great source of stats and data. So let's have a look at South Africa. So if we talk about the internet population penetration, we're talking about 36.54 million people, or 62% of the population. Social media usage specifically, 22 million people, which is also 36%. And mobile connectivity, which, I mean, we all know South Africa, it's a mobile first economy. You can see that there's 176% population penetration with people owning more than one device or more SIM card or connected in more than one mobile device type. So the availability of people is quite substantial. If we have a look at what South Africans actually spend their time doing on social media per day, using the internet, about 9 hours, 22 minutes, using social media, 3 hours and 10 minutes, watching TV, 3 hours, 33 minutes, listening to music, 1 hour, 37 minutes, and using a game console. That's specifically consoles. We're talking about very low. Sorry, I see that.
Rhys, sorry, there is a slight problem with the sound. If you can just speak a bit louder and get close to the mic, and also
Right. Is that a bit better, Dennis?
Yes, yeah, just stay close to the mic because we've had some comments that it's a bit quiet.
All right, no, brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. So using a game, but that's specifically a game console, obviously, 53 minutes. If we look at brand and product discovery, so the way that people say they actually find new products and brands, users age between 16 and 64. What we are looking at is 40% saying they discover via ads and social media, 40% via search engines, and 46% via TV ads. I've just extracted three channels here for comparison. So very interesting for me to see that there was still a higher percentage from TV ads. But if you were to look back a decade, this would be a very different environment. And specifically what we're interested in having seen here is that these users are not saying social, they're saying social media ads, which is, we're gonna get to it a little bit later as well, just why that's an interesting contrast. If we look at South Africa's most used social platforms, we can see here that we've got WhatsApp, again, mobile first economy, YouTube, very interesting fact on YouTube, South African audience are one of the best receivers of YouTube ads worldwide. Then of course, Facebook itself, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, following closely there. And then we can see the rest coming through Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Skype. Now, it's very interesting to see these stats and also to keep them in mind. I'm going to tell you why now about the ownership of this position online. Okay, guys, some people are still struggling to hear Dennis. I'm going to just switch over to headphones and then see if that works.
I think that would be a good idea. Thanks, Rhys. Apologies, everyone, for the slight delay, but we'll be back with you now.
Dennis, is that better?
Not really.
And not really. Okay.
Just try speak close to the mic.
Yeah, we've got the headphones.
Mariki says it is better. Okay, let's try it.
Okay. All right. Okay. I can hear perfectly before the headphones, 100%. I can hear fine. Okay, great. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate the feedback. Okay, great. So as I was saying, I want you to keep this picture in your head because we're going to talk about ownership of this space shortly. So right now, all right, really important concept. Facebook is not just Facebook. It's part of a network, and Facebook also owns Instagram, WhatsApp, the ad network itself, which is connected to other positions which we're going to discuss, as well as Facebook Messenger. So you can see that if we take the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions, Facebook as a network actually owns WhatsApp, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, and Instagram. And of those, 3 are directly available via the ad network. So what we're going to be discussing now is, well, how do we consider this position, this network, and then how do we use it? I see I've got a question here about Google My Business. We're not going to be covering Google in this session, just so everyone's aware of that. But if it's still important, if it comes up at the end, we can happily have a quick discussion. All right, so why? I always tell people, if you're going to go fishing, you need to go fish where the fish are. So the whole reason why we say, well, why should a business be engaging in not just Facebook ad networks, but any ad network is, well, you've got to be where people are. And Facebook specifically has 1.6 billion people worldwide that are connected to a small business on Facebook. So you can see that the impact or the reach availability of that is quite substantial. Facebook also has some additional features which makes it a really powerful marketing mechanism, which I'm going to touch on later. And something to keep in mind, to think about, is data-oriented marketing, and I'm going to chat about that just now. So how can you use Facebook? What can we actually do with Facebook as a network? Not just the ad sets itself, but what can we do holistically? So if we consider Facebook, you break it into 2, well, I define it in 2 major segments. The one being your organic-based marketing or your content-driven awareness, engagement, community management aspects of Facebook. And the other side is your paid-for mediums. So you're going to use the ad network, present it with content, it's going to reach people and drive a return for your business. If we look specifically on the left-hand side there under organic, it's great for branding, for community engagement, and for relationship management. So if you're running an effective business on Facebook, you're probably getting a lot of people coming through, direct messaging you, commenting, etc. And it's a good way to engage and to use your audience. It's driven by valuable content generation. So it's a content engine, and the better your content, the better your engagement. Ongoing communication management, so to be frequently and actively using your business page and engaging your network. Okay, so as we were saying, then also active engagement. If we look on the other side where we talk about the paid for, it's great for meeting specific objectives. So the ad network is objective orientated, which I'm going to show you just now. It's great for reaching more users. No matter what you do, keep in mind on Facebook, when it looks at content value, it's going to always favor peer-to-peer content over business-to-peer or business-to-user content. So the ad network is specific to saying, well, I've got this message or something, I need to reach people, but Facebook won't give it as much value as a peer-to-peer. So we use the ad network. It's good for driving return-based activities. So tell it what you want, it'll focus on that. It's driven by ads, media spend, and targeting. So a great thing we're going to see just now about Facebook is the ability to target users quite finitely and then learn from that is very good inside Facebook. So if we have a look, just some basic benefits and cons, you'll find your organic is naturally more trusted by the user. A user who enjoys your content is more engaged in it, will find that more authentic, etc.
And it's great for opportunity for peer-to-peer marketing, getting people to essentially become advocates and ambassadors of your brand. It usually takes a lot of hard work though, but it can be, you generate high return for your business. The cons are, for a business that does have limited reach, it's not highly targetable, whereas the ad network is, this is exactly who I'm looking for. And it's a little more difficult to measure. You can measure it. Okay, sorry, question here about the ad network. So the difference between your Facebook business page and your ad network, the ad network is very much so like if you think about Google Ads, if you're familiar with that. And essentially what you're doing is you're accessing Facebook's network of available online placements where you can actually put branded material for your business, and you pay the network in order to do that. So the difference is the ad network is a paid for medium inside Facebook, and your general pages are unpaid for content driven media. So boosting posts, it's a good question, is technically inside the ad network, but it's a very low key version of what the ad network can actually do. So it's a good question, and thank you for bringing it up. So for those of you who are doing boosting posts, you can think of that as sort of the tip of the iceberg of availability when you actually look at the full spectrum or the full application of the ad network. So let me just keep going then. So the benefits then of the ad network is high reach, it's highly targeted audiences, it's data driven and measurable. So everything is collectible. You're able to set specific outcomes on the platform, which I'm going to show you just now. So you can tell the system, I want you to focus on A, B, C, or D. And of course, it's a machine learning based platform, or algorithmic, if you want to think of it like that. So the more information you feed it, the better it becomes at doing its job. The cons is it can be spammy. If you go to town with the network and you don't consistently work on your ads, you're going to get people who are seeing the same ad over and over again, and it can feel a little spammy if it's not managed properly. It doesn't have the high trust content. It's not like the organic posting and engagement with your community, which has high trust, and it does require a spend. So you have to, additional to the management costs, etc., you have to spend a media fee on it, much like you would with Google Ads or similar networks. Okay, so what should you be doing? All right. As with most things in digital, or that the way we think about it, if you talk about Facebook or any other social network, if we talk about search marketing on Google, everything works better together when you are using a good paid position and a good organic position. The reason very simply being, if you pay to reach people, but you send them to a position that's unmanaged, they're going to have a poor experience by the time that they get there. It's the same as having a poorly designed website. You can drive as many people there as you want, but unless it's well built, well optimized, the experience gets broken, and all the money you would have put in might just be thrown away essentially. So they do work better together. You can imagine people finding your ads will then go to your page and start engaging there. That then can become an organic or a community driven activity. So from our perspective though, we focus on the ad network for performance-driven marketing. So it's built for business. It's built for outcome-based advertising in the social space. So we as a business tend to focus on the ad network with our clients and driving a specific type or series of objectives with them. We always recommend, though, at the very least, they must in-house their if they don't have another provider, is managing that organic aspect, the community aspect, the content production. Because as I said, with digital, things tend to work better hand in hand than they do in silos from each other. Okay, so what can you actually do with Facebook ads? Okay, so Facebook, the ad network becomes much larger when you look at it compared to, for instance, just using a boosted post or something like that. Boosted posts are great, but they give you one opportunity. Whereas if you actually go about setting up your Facebook business environment, you have access to a much larger opportunity. So we talk about one platform, but many opportunities. And as you can see here, what we're showing you is that the ad platform is connected to Facebook, to Instagram, to Facebook Messenger. And then at the very bottom, there is what they call the audience network. So imagine, just think of the audience network as an external position, but owned by Facebook. So if you use apps regularly, let's say you play games, or you use free apps that have ad space in them, sometimes those ads that pop up are actually generated from the Facebook's audience network. So it's an ad space using the network, but outside of Facebook. So once you get into using it, your availability becomes much larger. And also when you step into particularly the Instagram and Facebook aspect of it, you can see we've got all these different ad types that we can be using. And that really then brings in new opportunities for your business. So I'm going to show you some examples a little later. But you can see we've got stories, single image,
Rhys, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
You are breaking up a little bit. Can you just please check your connection?
Okay, give me a second here.
Okay, good.
Is that better?
It sounds like it's better. Carry on.
Okay, cool. All right. Sorry, so you've got, I'm going to go through the ad types, but what's great about Facebook is once it's set up, you can follow literally the following steps. Just think about it this way, is you tell the network what you want, you tell it who to target, you feed it information, you monitor its progress, and then you generate insight. Now that's where we're going to get a little more technical in a few minutes. And I'm going to explain something called Facebook Pixel. I also just want you guys to take out of this, if you haven't worked with the ad network before, but you have been boosting posts, there is so much material out there. Don't be put off by this, by what I'm showing you. I'm just giving you the world of Facebook, as it were. It's not, if it feels scary, please don't feel that way. So let me get on from here. So let's talk about, tell Facebook what you wanted to focus on. So if you think about giving a system an objective, you tell it, all right, I've given this system the ability to learn and to go get this information and have access to this type of data. Now you need to tell it, what do you want it to focus on? And within Facebook, it's literally a step-by-step process. The first step is tell it what you want. And some key objectives that we focus on when we look at Facebook is, all right, Facebook, I either want to focus on awareness and reach. So I want to find new users, or I actually want to generate traffic. So I want you to focus on finding people who are going to click through to my website. I want to find people who are likely to take certain actions on my website. So we call that a conversion campaign. So there's a little bit of setup there, but you will feed the learning portion back into Facebook, and it will say, okay, well, of the 3 people I sent via this ad, it was the second person who took the action, and it's going to go and look for more people like that. Then we have straightforward lead generation. So lead generation is quite cool if you're doing something like webinars or service-based businesses. You need people to request service. So it'll be a form actually inside the ad network itself. You may or may not have come across it. It pops up quite literally in your stream. You click it and the form opens. It's pre-formatted, and it will then send that to you as the business. So there's different ways to run the same, to actually get an outcome from Facebook in terms of the mechanics, which I'm going to get into. But you need to tell Facebook, well, this is what I want out of it. And usually this will also work in a funnel process. So by funnel, I'll say you'll start with awareness and reach because you want to get as big an audience as possible. And then you'll say, right, now I'm ready to generate traffic, and you'll run your next campaign and you'll focus on traffic, and then so on and so forth as you go down the conversion funnel. All right, and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to build an audience. So, excuse me, sorry, dry mouth. So one of the really interesting aspects of Facebook is, and a couple of the social networks, LinkedIn as well, is the ability to be quite granular and finite in your targeting. So if you as a business are used to or have done so, where you've developed personas, so you've gone down the effort and line of saying, all right, these are my current customers, this is what they look like, and here's a potential customer, and that's what they look like. You can then actually take that persona or that idea and then run through Facebook in that position and say, okay, Facebook, I'm looking for a person who meets these type of basic profiles. So you can break it out by the demographics of the person, you know, their age, gender, location, etc. Their interests, so the things that they seem to interact with the most, that they engage with, and their behaviors. So what are they actually doing when they are on Facebook, etc. So aside from actually getting into it and the exact mechanics behind it, what it allows you to do is say, okay, I'm looking for a person who, for instance, meets this 28 in a relationship and owns a house. So just remember, it's inferred, by the way. Facebook wouldn't know specifically if a person just bought a house, etc. It looks at their interactions, their behaviors, etc., and then makes a educated or logical based decision. And once you've got this breakdown, and why it's so important to have this breakdown is, you could go into Facebook, you could do the basics, you can do a basic, let's say a basic promoted post, which actually does have a degree of targeting in it, but let's say you haven't used the targeting, but you're willing to spend 1,000 Rand on this post. And now what it does is it says, cool, I'm just going to send this post to everybody I can reach. If you were able to actually first tell it, well, no, I know my user looks like this, or my, you know, I've talked to my sales team, I've talked to my marketing team, and I've got this picture of a person. You will get much higher return by focusing on that user type than just going with a very shotgun approach. So you will see that not every person is right for a particular business. So, you know, the marketing agency, the home insurance company, the online fashion store, the electronics e-commerce store, they don't necessarily all talk to the same person. Yes, they can, and one of the arguments you might have here is, oh, but maybe I don't know my exact customer, which is fine. There's good ways to deal with that problem on a network, especially with a learning-based system. But you should, or you most likely do, have a very good idea of what your client and what your audience looks like, and that's where the audience builder becomes really important. So you'll go onto Facebook. You'll ask it to show you people with this type of interest, and it'll give you an audience estimate. It'll tell you we have a potential X 100,000 million people that we can reach with your ads. And then depending, remember, on what you've told it to do, it's going to focus on people who have different behaviors, interests, who act in certain ways, and that all requires good feedback into Facebook's network. So what do I mean by feedback? So I said I was going to talk about this thing called the pixel, to give you some comparatives with things. Other words you might have heard is, if you run Google Ads, there would be Google Ads tracking, the Google Ads tag, Google Analytics tag, which allows you to track website interaction with users, all of which gets fed back into Google's ad network so that it can better target and remarket to people, retarget them. And Facebook has exactly the same thing. In fact, most social networks do. Facebook's probably the most sophisticated, but LinkedIn has their version as well, and so does Twitter. But what the pixel is a code snippet or a script that needs to be installed on your website. And once it's on your website, it will track a person as they travel from the Facebook ad that you sent to them and onto the site. And then if you've set up the events correctly, monitor the types of interactions that they take. And then, of course, that person either will convert or won't convert. If they don't convert, then they can be retargeted later if they match a retarget profile. If they do convert, then Facebook can say, well, this person looks like this. and there's X number of other people who share a very similar profile. So focus on people who took this kind of action. And the whole idea is, the whole point of conversion optimization is to teach these systems to focus on people more likely to actually convert. So as I mentioned, and the pixel is not difficult to install. If you've got your website, I like to do it through Google Tag Manager, which you may or may, if you haven't heard of it, no problems. Your developer can get it set up for you. Just needs to be in the head of the site. And then you can use the events builder in Facebook to actually tag like a form send or a button click or something, and tell Facebook this is an important event to me. So as an example, a user clicks on a Facebook ad and is sent to the website. They land on the website on which the Facebook pixel is installed. The Facebook pixel collects and sends the interaction data back to the Facebook ads platform. And the campaign optimization and audience building happens here, where the ad platform uses the interaction data to focus on user types that match the selected campaign objective. Additionally, we can build audiences using this data. So there's two types of audiences. Well, there's more than two types, but specifically with this, you can build an audience who take a specific action on your site, and you can collect this information. And when Facebook has enough people who fit inside that audience, you can use it, you can market to it. So that's where your remarketing becomes quite powerful, where if you imagine you're an e-commerce site, and you want to focus on people who got to your add to cart, but then they just dropped off, and you say, but they could have bought. So now you start hitting them again with different ads in line with the products that they were interested in. And again, you can pull your product feed out of your website and into Facebook. So that gives you the opportunity to build that kind of audience. And another audience that we find works really nicely is a lookalike audience. So a lookalike audience is exactly what it sounds like. You tell Facebook, people who took this action here, I want you to find more people who have that profile. So remember, Facebook, for all intents and purposes, is just a giant database. It collects people's information, stores it, and allows, and then accesses it to build profiles. And all we're saying is, well, use that information and build me audiences who look like high converters. So to be if I were to give you any piece of advice at this point, is make sure you've got your pixel installed. You may not use this process now, but if you want to use it 2-3 months down the line and you haven't got your pixel, that opportunity will not be open to you. If you're at least installing your pixel, Facebook is tracking this interaction data. So the pixel is a highly valuable portion of it. So just to give you an example of remarketing, if you look at a user, so remarketing allows you, as I just mentioned, I jumped ahead there, but to retarget people who take specific actions or don't take specific actions on your site. So a user comes to your website, you've got the Facebook pixel installed, which is tracking that data. The user then goes to Facebook platform where they receive ads, and those ads take them back to your website. So remarketing is the ability to focus on those people who could have converted or could have done something, and essentially bring them, or have second, third, fourth opportunities to bring them back into your environment. All right, so let's have a look just quickly at the types of ads that you get within Facebook. So there's a whole bunch that you can use, and you can be super creative, or you can be very specific. And also think about your business and your audience. If you're a super creative brand, then having a super creative ad is great. If you're a very straightforward, simple brand, then a simple ad is probably a better option for you. But if we have a look, the most common one, most commonly used, is your single image ad, which is just a card, or call it a card with an image and a call to action, and it drives people to a position on your site. It's usually, your boosted posts would usually be very similar to this. It's quite easy to set up. And as I said, if you're a simple brand with a simple message, this can be a really good way to start with your ad campaigns. We also then get stories. So people who are more, not au fait, but you use Instagram more, you probably, or you will have seen Instagram stories. So stories add an additional degree of interaction to the post type or the ad type. As you can see here, It just allows for small changes in the ad, but that small change can tell a little story, hence the name, stories, and get users to take actions. Really good for engagement and getting your community sort of interested in, or users interested in what's going on. And it's available on Instagram and Facebook. You also get your carousel ads. Now, excuse me. We use carousel ads frequently. We really like it. It's a nice way to showcase a series of either ideas about your business or services or products in a single ad format, and then let users follow a particular message to your site. So you could have multiple messages in a carousel. We have found, though, if we try put too diverse a message set inside a single carousel set, that it kind of breaks a user's intent or expectation. So even though the images are different, usually what we say is we'll have a consistent message. And it's nice for a basic setup, but a degree of interaction. And also you can then send users, for instance, if you want to send one carousel to page 1 and one carousel to page 2, because each of those are opportunities, then you can do that with a carousel, whereas with a single image you would only have one link opportunity. And then a good one, we get really good engagement with this, is video ads. So it looks exactly like this. You would have seen it in your stream. It pops up and you can watch a video. It's a nice way to get a message across very visually. The things to keep in mind: a strong, let's say, return-driven video message, if you can keep it to about 15 seconds, you're doing the right thing. We tend to see drop-off after that, and I actually should have asked my campaign manager, but after a certain point, you actually can't add the video to the Facebook ads platform. It tells you this is too long, it won't work as an ad. Depending on the format of your video, it can appear across Instagram, Facebook, your Facebook stream versus other platforms. But what videos are really good for is driving a engaged message across visually. It's not as direct call to action driven, if you want to think about it like that, whereas something like a carousel ad says, here's X, do Y. A video message, very much so like stories, will tell something that needs to be engaged with. So that's video ads. And then you get a collection. Collection's quite cool. It actually allows you to build a mini experience inside Facebook. So you would have essentially it's like a mini website inside Facebook, and you can see you've got a header image and then a series of offers inside there. And again, it pops up inside a user's feed and stream, and they can engage with it. It has all sorts of features and functionality. You can have your video ad in it. You can have products pulled in to it, so it works as with dynamic products as well. And it's available in Instagram and Facebook. Again, it's really cool, but remember, if you're not, for instance, a fashion brand, a collection may not be the best option for you. If you're selling just a straightforward product, then carousel ads or product ads probably be a better option. But in terms of catching a user's eye, a collection can be really cool to do. All right, and then for e-commerce, predominantly e-commerce specific businesses, we get dynamic product ads. You get a very similar feature inside Google Ads with their Merchant Center. And what you're able to do is actually pull dynamically out of your site your product set, your e-commerce product set, and then post it as a catalog directly into Facebook and essentially advertise that catalog to people. If you set it up properly, and you will need to, otherwise it'll tell you you can't use it. It'll pull in your current, products that are currently available, and then as the feed updates, it will remove products that are out of stock, etc. And it's a nice way to keep your products in front of users consistently with a minimal amount of input, if you will, from your side. Whereas if you're running consistent carousel ads, every time you need a new carousel, you have to go in, change the ad, change the creative, and then you would actually, yeah, you would run the campaign again, or you'd update. Just a caveat on that, something to keep in mind. If you change ads in Facebook, try not to update the creative inside an ad that exists. The reason being is when you do that, Facebook zeroes out the data and the learning on that ad. So it's a frustrating little nuance. Rather, well, our process is to recreate the ad and allow it to keep the original data set. So just an interesting thing. Instead of changing the creative in an existing ad, it might be better to duplicate that ad and then change it. So e-commerce does really well, or we've had a good experience with guys who use the collection ads and the dynamic product ads, where their product their site is dynamic, their environment is dynamic. So there's actually products that we can pull and we can send here, and it can update itself as it goes along. So you can imagine ad fatigue becomes less of a problem because the products, they update themselves, etc. If we talk about e-com, we do tend to focus on things like collections, dynamic product ads, and carousel ads for our clients. If we go into service-based businesses, we find things like videos and even the single image ads actually do quite nicely. So remember, single image, straightforward message, do this, get that. Really good to have. And again, everything is data orientated. So with your dynamic product ads, you're pulling data off your website for the products people are purchasing. You're seeing what people are interested in Facebook, and Facebook's going, all right, cool. I'm going to focus on selling this type of product because it's doing really well. And you as well, if you've got your back-end analytics set up well as a business, not Facebook, you can gather a lot of insight from that. Okay, so steps to get going. This is just basic steps. But this is how we would go about getting a client onboarded and setting them up. So you need to get a Facebook business page set up. All right, so you might have a personal page. You're going to have to go and set up a business page. It's really simple to do. If you just Google set up Facebook business page, you will find it. The next thing, which is a bit more, it's different, even if you set up a Facebook page before, you may not have come across it, is the Facebook Business Manager. I'm going to give you a heads up right away. It's a horrible platform. They change their interface all the time. But the thing is, once you're in it, there are so many more features that you have access to, and it becomes so much easier to manage multiple accounts. If you're a business who has branches all over the world, etc., you're going to want to use Facebook Business Manager, and it also gives you access to the ad network. The next thing you're going to want to do is connect your page to your business manager. So you're actually going to assign your business manager to your page. You're going to create an ad account inside your business manager. So again, easy steps. It's literally a click add, give it a name, tell it to use South African ZAR. Otherwise, you're going to have an unhappy result at the end of the day, being down that road. Set up and install your Facebook pixel. Again, that's inside your business manager. And then go to your ad account and set up your first campaign. So if you can follow these 6 steps and there's material all over the place, then you will be good to go. All right, things to just keep in mind, that just some recommendations from myself. Match your customer to a user type. Not all Facebook users are potential customers, and also not every business is meant to be on Facebook or use the Facebook network. It's really good for B2C, and it can work well for B2B, but usually I would say layer in maybe a LinkedIn ad campaign as well, and just see how the users respond. Develop personas to match your audience in the targeting process. Persona development, it's actually not a complex process. Who are the people who buy from me? And secondly, who do I want to buy from me? And get some ideas around them, and then you'll see in Facebook, you'll be able to break down a lot of that information. Okay, understand what you want from a user and what you're going to give them. So social is still a transactional environment. The currency is just information, attention, and action. So remember, we talked about at the beginning, difference between your organic and your paid, whereas paid is very direct, etc. Call to action, do this. Your organic is very much so a user or a social transactional environment. You give a user this piece of information, this piece of content, you engage them, you entertain them, you create value for them. what do they give you? They give you their attention, their interaction, even their information. So it's not the same as doing simple ads like Google search ad campaigns. You can write your ads, you can send it out. It's a very intentful network, the search network. This is a very engaged network. Okay, be intentful with your campaign setup. Brand, if you're going to think about your different objectives, you could run an awareness campaign at the top of your funnel, which is good for your brand development. Then in the middle of your funnel, you would run a traffic campaign. Now you want to send people to your website, and that's great for prospecting. And then you want to run a conversion campaign. You want to say, okay, cool, thanks very much. I've got this big audience. I've reached these people. I've built up data, and etc. And now I'm actually going to convert. So you can see, in terms of your business, it's the other way around to the funnel. You want to fill that sales aspect of your business, but you have to go through the step-by-step process. You have to have your pixel set up with specific events to teach the network what a good converter looks like. Okay, pick the right ads. Are you selling online, looking for lead submissions, and just seeking better exposure, or just seeking better exposure for your brand? Ad types work well with different objectives and online assets. So you're selling products, use dynamic product ads. You're selling content, use video ads. Not every ad or campaign will require every type of ad. In fact, you'll probably just dilute your exposure at that point, and also create additional heavy lifting for your business in terms of creating the ads, managing them, etc. Okay, get educated. Do the Facebook Blueprint Academy courses. They're there, they're free to use, they're really cool. Get onto YouTube and get informed. So the only thing that will stop you, actually, in my opinion, from using the Facebook ad network is choosing not to just simply log on to Facebook's Blueprint Academy, or to just literally Google, set up Facebook page, etc. The information is all there, and you'll hit, as with everything, you bang your head a couple of times, but you will eventually become au fait using the network. And then, of course, it teaches you about the pixel, etc. So really important. Get educated and keep educated. These platforms change consistently, which is the very nature of digital. Okay, and that's it, Dennis, in terms of the actual presentation. But I do see a bunch of questions here.
There are a load of questions, Rhys. I think let's start at the top and start working through. But there's some fantastic questions here.
All right, cool. Let me have a look here. All right, I'm having an issue with dynamic ads, using product ads, but they don't show up. Okay, I think it's Kelly, your question here, this catalog and also none on the ad that are flagged. Oops, sorry, I lost the question there. But that looks like a technical issue from the feed itself. So you might find that the variable name, you need to match it to the same variable inside the Facebook ad feed itself, or the same naming convention. So if you're using something like WordPress and you're using a feed manager, it usually will actually tell you in the drop downs as you go along, this is the naming convention, and this is the compatible, or the one that you need to use in Facebook. There's a whole bunch of reasons that could happen. It could be a lot of technical reasons, like it's passing the information as text rather than a number, or it's not appending the currency. So I would say, if you take that exact issue you've got there, product.current_price strip_zeros, just go Google it and see what the documentation from Facebook pops up. Sorry, I can't answer that one right here. It's just a little more, it would require a little more kind of working or seeing it. But if you are using like a WordPress with a feed manager, just check that those two fields match with each other, and that they've got the same type. So if it's text, it must be text. If it's numeric, it must be numeric. And then also the structure, like, does it need to have ZAR, Z-A-R, currency appended to it? Then that's going to be the best way to look at it. The other, sorry, Dennis, I'm still getting the polls coming up, so I'm not able to see all the questions, but I do remember one of the questions being, if you're managing if you have multiple locations around the world, what's the best way to manage your Facebook environment? So if you sell across the world, but you have a single business, the best place to do it would be still from a single business manager. So remember, the Facebook Business Manager is designed to solve that problem. I am one business, but I have many pages, or etc. If you are a business that has many physical locations around the world, then, and you need to specifically bid, and by bidding I mean be willing to compete on an ad network in the local currency, you will need to set up probably a business manager per location, because when you set up an ad account here and you bid in ZAR, Rand, that's good for South Africa. When you go to the US, then you're going to have to bid in dollars. So at that point, I would say create a holding company business manager account, and then create local business manager variations, and through a partner connection you can manage everything from one central position. Here it is. If you have a global Facebook page, several regional, would you recommend just running ads from that central brand page and using targeting to each region? Okay, so again, if your business is one location but services many locations in the world, then yes, run one ad account. If you need to compete locally and send people to a physical location, then you will probably want to have a global business manager, but multiple ad accounts. Keep in mind, pain in the bum with Facebook and ad accounts, there's a limitation. Depending on what kind of business you are, it's between, I think, 2 and 5 max. So if you have more than 5 required ad accounts, you will probably need more than one Facebook business manager. But yeah, if you are a global Facebook page, another thing also interesting on Facebook is you can have location pages on Facebook. So you can go with Business Manager and say, right, this is my global page, but I also have service locations around the world, and it will create spin-off pages, if you will, that you can use. Remember, you still have to manage them though. So don't forget that just because you create them, they're not just going to sit idle. They still need to be managed. Can you have one Facebook page and essentially one Facebook pixel, but 2 different websites? So you can, as long as they support one business. For me, the minute you start diverging, so now I've got 2 businesses, it would be better to keep these things in isolation. Additionally, if those 2 businesses focus on different user types, you're still going to probably want 2 pixels. Then you want to tell the system it needs to work independently. But if you've got one Facebook page selling one product for one business, but you happen to have 2 websites, sure, you can have 1 pixel on 2 websites. There's no technical reason why it won't work. What sometimes does get flagged as a problem is if you try and install multiple pixels on one website. That can cause some conflicts. So just be aware of that. Okay, would collection ads do well for an e-commerce website selling fresh produce? Would do well for e-commerce? I mean, generally collection ads do well for any type of e-commerce. I think where a collection becomes useful is where you've got a good variety of products. So if you've only got 3 products you're able to sell, then rather use a carousel. If you've got a series of products that can include a video that showcases the product and a product list and additional graphics and can be super interactive, then 100% collection will work for you. If really what you're trying to focus on is, here's a box, buy a box, and here's another container, buy this container, then maybe carousel ads would be a better option. Also remember that the collection ads are really cool, but you will need these different media types. So you'll have to have the product, you'll have to maybe do a video or or something. So that can add a little bit of additional resource impact for your business. Okay. I run a Facebook page for a B2B company. We sell software that is rather expensive, and our buyer cycle 6 to 12 months. Brand awareness, any recommendation ad you think would be okay in my case? Software is rather expensive in a buyer cycle. So you're selling B2B and you've got a, I'm saying this is to Dana Jacob. I'm going to make a couple of assumptions here because it is software, it probably has a degree of technical knowledge requirements around it, and education. So anything that has, let's say, is quite technical in nature, and probably would require a degree of client education, I would strongly suggest using very interactive based ads. So imagine now what you actually want to do is you want to educate your client base on the value of your system. What's the best way to do that? Well, the best way to do that is to give them videos or experiences that show them the value of the software. So for you probably you do want to use retargeting because you send person A the first ad and they interact and they could be interested, but then you follow up with a series of ads after that further deepens the knowledge of your product. That would probably be the best way for you to win over a long term, especially if you've got a 6 to 12 month buyer cycle. So definitely would say have the pixel installed, use the audience builder, and set a time frame. You're looking for people who exist in your audience time frame, and find more people like that and focus on them. If you resend to people who fit into a certain time frame, but because you are a technical, I'd imagine, software type, you are going to want to showcase the value of the product and do a education series on it. And to me, that immediately says video ads, maybe stories, but I would stick with video ads, collection-based ads. And if you are going to use image ads, try focus on like information tidbits, like, did you know with this type of software you can get X amount, etc., etc. Keep in mind, of course, don't put all that text in an image because Facebook won't allow it to go through. But sorry, to answer your question, visual, education, informational type ads, interactive, and retargeting definitely. If you set specific retargeting, what you can do is as you run people through the awareness engagement, the traffic, etc., is retarget people who fit those two criteria and hit them with conversion ads, maybe even lead gen ads after, you say 6 to 12 months, so maybe after month 4, you start actually showing them lead generation ads. So we talked about that funnel. We run a very specific 3-tier funnel in our business, awareness, traffic, and conversion. And all that varies is the time frame between them. And it tends to do really nicely.
Rhys, I think we've got time for one more question.
All right, let me just have a look.
I have a question.
Yeah,
when we spoke earlier on the week, you spoke a lot about how you can leverage your spend to really increase and your visibility on Facebook. I think there was an amazing tip. If you can just tell us in 1 minute what that's all about. Sure,
100%. So it's just a tactic you can use with any, well, with most of the bidding ad networks. And by leveraging your spend, what we say is be willing to, so think about your outcomes for the business or for what you're trying to do, and then be willing to spend in certain places, sort of your higher amounts. Sorry, Siri's about to talk to me. Someone needs to tell me how to turn that off. So Dennis, in your specific position, you were saying, when's it better to spend the money? Is it ramping up to the event, and then after a certain, as you get closer, it's actually not worth running it anymore? And then what I said was, well, no, because the user's intent as you get closer to the event is much higher. So what you actually want to do is increase your spend as you move up to that, because we know that time is an influence on people. And it's the idea of, let's say, time-based scarcity. They know they're getting closer and closer to it. So the likelihood or the potential to actually convert a user closer is much higher than the month before, etc. So what we suggested was, or what I was saying is, well, people are going to be more intentful the closer they get. So raise your budgets then, because you're going to get a higher conversion rate. You've also already told the network you're willing to spend up until this point. So what you do is, as you increase that spend, you suddenly say, well, now and this is, I mean, I'll call a spade, Facebook, Google ads, everybody wants money. You show an intent to spend more, and they start to produce your ad more in front of people. It also works the other way around. Very interestingly, we've tested this a couple of times, where you start with a very high budget in the beginning. So you essentially go onto the ad network and you show it you have a willingness to spend money. So let's say in month one, you say, you put, just throwing a number out there, don't be afraid of it, but let's say you put 30,000 Rand in, and you show the network, I have an intent of, putting 30,000 Rand in. And what it does is it ramps you up really nicely, gets really good exposure and reach. And then what you can actually do is now start to ramp down. So you can spend less and less as you move forward until you reach a nice optimal position where your conversion is much better than your spend. Whereas if you had started at just this sort of very, and there's nothing wrong with it, depending on what kind of budget you have, but a sort of flatline approach, you won't get that initial growth. And again, you feed the system data, you won't get the speed of growth in your campaigns that you would, thinking about going, right, I'm going to show the system I'm committed to spending up front, generate large amounts of data and interaction data, and then ramp down. And then conversely, as in your case, is actually say, well, users' commitment is better as they get closer time. So spend more at that point. So being very tactical in your spend is a great way to use any ad network, to be honest, not just, maybe not the Google search network. I think it might be very consistent, but LinkedIn, Facebook, probably maybe the display network as well. If you show a commitment to spend, they actually will prioritize you. And then you make sure your campaigns are optimized, your data feedback loops are in place, and you will do better over the long term. The con, of course, is you need to have that upfront sort of initial kick budget and be willing to spend it. But yeah, it's a good tactic.
Great. Thanks so much. Last question, Graham White, I posted this twice. Just a yes or no answer. So can my personal Facebook be linked to my business page on Facebook, or is it not recommended? In 10 seconds.
If your business is you, so you're a consultant, then sure, go for it. If your business is a business, it's selling product, etc., don't use a personal profile. You'll also find that because you're not actually using a business page, which is a function of Facebook, you'll have limitations on what you're able to do with that page. So even business pages have a consultant type business, and I always suggest use the business features of the network. Your personal page is great for you, and you can drive your users from a personal page to a business page as you migrate them. But that is my opinion, is it's better to use the business aspects of the network and keep it that way. Yeah.
Great. Rhys, that's all we've got time for. Thanks so much to Rhys Downard from Media Rocket. That was a hugely insightful presentation. I think that we have gained tremendous insights on how to structure Facebook campaigns and how they get more effective over time. Thanks so much, Rhys. Before everyone leaves, just a final reminder that all sessions are being recorded, and you will receive emails with the links to them shortly. We look forward to helping you continue your journey of using social media to drive your traffic and to your website and finding your dream clients. To remind you, this month is all about learning how to execute the most effective digital campaigns to win customers and grow your online business. The last session, as you can see on your screen, is in this journey is part 3 of Online X's July Triple Play, taking place next week. Bookings for the last free not to be missed session is open, and you can book now by clicking on the link in the chat. Join us next week, Tuesday, when we have an international speaker from the USA, Danny Gavin. He's the chief strategist and founder of Optage, who will be presenting on how to use SEO to get your website on the first page of Google. This is where you can learn how to improve your Google ranking and drive higher traffic to your website. Again, you can book now by clicking on the link in the chat. Please keep a lookout for further correspondence and all the social media posts from the Online X team about these new Online X gatherings happening in the coming weeks. Thanks again for your attendance. Good luck with your Facebook strategy, and goodbye.